All right, yeah. Let me move this over a little, get that snorty thing out of there. Okay, good, you can hear me. Welcome everyone in virtual land and in real land. We had a really fun NAMM bringing this new piece there, so I feel really good about that, and feel good about all you showing up, whoever's tuning in. This piece has been a while coming for us. It's been a labor of love, over a year of development. And as I said before, the Pro 3 is not just a Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3, a repeat in a series. It is kind of, because they're all mono synths, and it's all from the same designer, Dave Smith. But, Dave never makes just a copy or a Mach 2 or a Mach 3. He does something that's fresh in the moment, and that's what's true here. That's what I'm going to show you today. So I'm Gerry Bassermann, and I've been with Sequential for 2-3 years. Kind of dream job, play stuff like this and teach people and stuff. So very happy to be here. Hey, so I don't know if you can see this, but these handouts are there. Can you see that? Yeah, there's 2 versions of this. That's why I'm doing this. The Pro 3 comes in sort of 2 flavors. And the one I have is neither flavor because it's a prototype, but the ones back there that you were seeing, that's what we call Standard Edition. And this one's called, one on the bottom's called SE, means Special Edition. And it's got really beautiful design, wood and metal, and it also comes up to about sort of rakish angle like here. So if you're sitting level with it, you can use it. And it's funny because everyone goes, that's so sexy. And I'm going like, yeah, but it's really functional. So nobody started tilting panels except that it was more usable, but people interpret it, just as that kind of good looking piece of gear, right? So yeah, there's the SE and the Standard. Standard is $1,600 and the SE is $2,100. So that's the price range. But they're the same synth. So same sounds, same everything. I played a little bit there, but I'm also going to do it again to get a little sound in here before all the talking happens. And so I'm going to start with this second preset here called Goom, because a mono synth, should play some good bass tones. So I'm going to try to get some of those out today. All right. Thank you. I like that. I like that that patch a lot, Goom. But I want to tell you what's in here, so that you know the design, you know what to expect, and a few reasons why we did what we did, why Dave did what he did. So, you're comfortable? Can you see here? Am I in the way, blocking it or whatever? Can you see pretty much? The signal starts here, left to right. Pretty simple path that the oscillators, are here, and they get mixed together in whatever proportions, and then they go through the multi-filter path here, and then they get shaped by the envelopes and modulated by the LFOs, and that's sort of the bottom row. Oddball bit here, more later. Then up here we have the dual effects and the sequencer. So the oscillators are 2 VCOs and 1 digital wavetable, which kind of can't be more different in terms of types of sounds. The Pro 2 had 4 digital oscillators. Sometimes they didn't sound like digital oscillators. The Prophet 12 didn't sound so much to people like a digital. They were really good emulations of normal waveforms, right? But they were digital, in fact. And these are VCOs in every sense. We added the octave switches. Never had that on a sequential piece before, which is just easy to program, but I mean really fun to play with when you're performing with it. And then what you have, let me go to the basic program. You just hit a couple of buttons and you're on the single oscillator 1 sawtooth wave. Now the sawtooth sits at the top. What it is here is the triangle, sawtooth, and the pulse, and continuous crossfade from the one to the other. So just in that knob alone, I can play it. A nice continuous trip from one, all the different harmonics that each of them has. There's that part of it, and then there's the shape mod, which when you choose one of those, like that's over there near the pulse wave, and you get pulse wave with modulation there. You're changing the duty cycle of the wave, positive and negative part of the wave. So depending on how you set them, or if you modulate them with an envelope or an LFO, right there without doing anything else, you have a lot of tonal. You're not using a filter. You're just, introducing a different waveform. And how you have that match up with the second is how those pitches are made. Now let me Now, the third, the digital wavetable, sounds like another standard VCO, but it's not. It's like what the Pro 2 has. It's that digital oscillator that simply has the shape of a sawtooth there. It's hard to read up there in this field. Yeah, I can barely read it, so that says saw. Similarly, you have shape mod. Similarly, If you want a sound with all 3 sawtooths or all 3 triangle or whatever, detune them, etc., you have it. You know, you don't go any further than that, and then do that same thing. But then you get super saw, and then you get pulse, doing the same thing I was doing with the VCO, and triangle. Okay? Now after that you get a sine. So sine waves are really good for lots of things, and there's no sine wave option on your VCOs. So this is the sine wave in the box, and good for one thing. The Mini Moog or any number of mono synths had a third oscillator. You could tuck a sub-octave under what you're doing to beef up and it's invisible, but it's just more like a feeling, right? That's what a sine wave is. So I think there's also a patch that I could play here. This is sort of the other value of a sine wave. So the only thing in there is that one oscillator, right? But because of the way, well, it's filters too, you're getting that nice, huggy, give me more feeling. So anyway, that's what the sine wave is all about. So let's go back to this idea that you don't have anything but that. But then after the sine wave, you get into 32 of these wavetables that are more than just one cycle of a waveform that you're shape modding or changing duty cycles. Now you have 16 waves that are cross-faded to each other in each of the tables. That's what I call it, a table. So then you have that, and once you have that, if you remember something like the PPG, right, it had the ability to scan through this table of sounds. So now, instead of a shape mod, well, it's still a shape mod. So I have that there. I have, there we go. I've got an oscillator with an attitude. This is the wavetable that says sequential, but when you actually then modulate through it, you don't really hear that. Then it's similar with all of them. So you have all this incredible motion within that, and there's tons of ways to play with that. You could do it smoothly like that, or you can do it not smoothly, sample and hold from the LFO. So if I were to just hold down one of these LFO buttons and then touch a knob, then it knows, okay, that LFO is going to be aimed at that parameter, any knob that I touch. And then, and I turn the amount up, and I get that going really fast, because it's, but it could be a different wave, so that more of the sawtooth thing, climbing, falling instantly, climbing. We put it on the sample and hold, then you get. Like that. Anyway, there's 32 of them. They have all kinds of, some are vowels, some are artifacty, some are like bell trees or something. So they're, this is therefore a really hybrid instrument. You know, you have the VCOs that are undeniably voltage, and the wavetables that are completely the opposite. And so, you know, if you were to play back there, or I'll play a bunch of sounds here, you hear that staggering sort of variety, and that's what the Pro 3 does well because of the source material that's here. And you can do hard sync on the oscillators into the next oscillator. You also have the other audio idea you have is, this is oscillator 1, 2, and 3. This is external audio. So you have an audio in on the back, and you're able then to add an external thing to that. And as long as the VCA is open, it's got the envelope open to allow it through, then you can hear it. You can use the filters and the effects and get it in the mix, as it were. And then under that is the noise. So. I'm thinking it's Scottish, but I don't think it exactly sounds like the Scottish music. Anyway, then the headline kind of, at least in our mind, that's why it's front and center with the biggest knob, is the filter section, because the filter section has three options, and the options are sequential filter, like is found in the Prophet 6. It's a low-pass, four-pole filter. And the next is also four-pole low-pass filter, but it's based on Bob Moog's design of the ladder filter. So it has different characteristics entirely, how it deals with its resonance and its profile. So it's very interesting to have both side by side. And then here is a two-pole state variable filter, which is Tom Oberheim's design. And that's super flexible when you let's just use the noise. So right away you have more going through because the two-pole doesn't cut off the sound as deeply, as quickly as the four-pole. So now we're in low-pole pass mode, and this knob up there is going to now be able to be variable through a notch to a high pass. So the behavior in the high pass is it lets the highs pass through, and now I'm lowering that threshold. And now it's in low pass mode, but I've got it all the way down, so it's letting the lows through, and now I'm opening it up. And if you turn the resonance up, of course, doesn't do as much as a four-pole would, a resonant on a four-pole. And band pass so it's the most flexible of the three filters, and it has completely different uses and sounds. And because there are three classic filters, you can also associate them with certain sounds. Like, when you make a string patch, often you use a two-pole filter just because the four-pole is kind of obvious doing its work, but the two-pole is not as obvious. In the old days when you had an amplifier playing music through it, it had a tone control on it, left to right. That's like a one-pole filter, and it's the most invisible, right? Because it's gently turning. The umbrella of effect is so wide that you don't hear it as that. But in synthesis, we want to hear it, right? It's a huge effect. So those filters are a huge part of what and they're analog. So that makes this section right here just sound really big and full of signal voltage. And the behavior is voltage behavior too. So, yeah. So right there you have kind of the main part of the sound. Then you have the four envelopes, amp, filter, and two auxiliaries, three LFOs, and then of course the sequencer here. So let me go and play some other sound and just get some. See, right away after GOM. Then the very next sound is synthwave, and completely digital sound, right? I mean, it has some fundamental oscillator 1 and 2 to give it body and pitch fundamental, but then all the candy on top is completely digital. So yeah, that's just as you step through those. That's the two-pole filter, a little bit more aggressive, more clear. Do the same thing with our four-pole. And you really hear the wah of the filter. You don't hear that because it's not steep enough on the two-pole. But it's set the exact same. Now over here, maybe my body's blocking that so you can't see it, but these are two wheels, the pitch wheel and the mod wheel. The mod wheel you can park. I'm sure you're all aware of all that. This is the touch, and if you've never seen our touch slider, it's really effective because, let's go like this. If I latch it, you know, it leaves it where it is so then it's really easy to change the state. But if I want to play it rhythmically, you know, then you can do that kind of stuff with it. So I love that. I just to me, that's just those three. Having those three is remarkable. There's also pressure on the keyboard as well. So if I want to play with that, let's go to the next. Also, it's a 3-octave keyboard, so it's nice that it has just the performance octaves here, so that you can take that keyboard and slide it up and down, right? So that's different than taking one oscillator and some are staying the same and one is going. It's the same effect in a way, but it's a little easier when you want the whole group to go up, right? So it's going like that. I love this sound. Sounds like a guitar. It's like a sound that I might play on my guitar. Yeah, right. So, and then there's the sequencer. So I don't know what, every one of these patches, you get 512 patches with it. And our system is to put them in factory banks of 4 of 128, and then they're burned in ROM, so that the factory patches are always there. You can't be afraid to overwrite something because it's always going to be there. And then they're duplicated in the user banks, 1 through 4. So it's easy to just experiment with those user ones, make them your own. That's what I do a lot of times. You get in there and you just say, why is this not playable to me? Well, because you weren't the sound designer who made it. You guys think different, or gals think different. And so you have to think about, what do you want to adapt? You know, is the velocity too much for the way you play, or the pressure? You know, you don't want to work that hard. And once you do that, you save those changes, because now that patch that you like, you know, it's yours in a sense that you've adapted it that way. Or you can change it profoundly. You know, you don't have to change it just a little, because all that work is done for you. And people who are new to synths, you know, they should really get that message together. You know, it's just changing. Well, of course, it's got effects on it. Just changing some simple things on the envelope can be something that adapts the sound. So, all right. So I'm going to move on to the sequencer. Any questions so far? We can do questions while we're yeah. Well, they're changeable in the sense that you can sweep through them in that way that I said, and then you can change, you know, tune them over how many octaves is it, 6 or 7 octaves? But it's the same 32 that are stored in the box. Right, right. There's been talk, some folks asked at NAMM about, well, what about my wavetables? Can I have my wavetables in there? And that's not impossible. It's just that we just came out with this, so we haven't thought to commit to such a decision. But it would be perhaps an interesting idea to make it a simple thing either for folks to do or send us something. I'm not sure yet, but as I say, we just came out with it, so not quite yet. Yeah. 4 poles, do they self-oscillate? I think the Moog does. Sounds like a cow. Let me do a little. I think I got some other things in this patch going on. But that's all. The whistling that you're hearing is all resonance. Yeah. That's on the ladder. Yeah. So it would never happen on the bandpass. Yeah. And depending on the source, it could happen on the OTA here. I already low passed it over here. Something else going on, but you hear it, the harmonics climbing, yeah. You're like, yes, we can hear it. We're right in front of those big, you're on the other side, so you don't know. Anyway, let me get to... There was one question on the oscillators from YouTube. They were wondering if they got the slop. Yeah, the slop doesn't have a knob right now. When you go in, let's say I change the coarse tuning here. Now I'm in the oscillator screen. And any knob that you touch, you're going to get a different screen, that's going to, now it's the envelope because I'm moving an envelope parameter. Now I'm changing the shape of the oscillator, so it's doing that. So yeah, when you go to oscillator slop, it's this 4th parameter here, similarly. So yes to that. Oscillator slop is just they're asking because these are actual VCOs, and so that was always the question with other oscillators is, can you mimic the sound of VCOs that beat against each other, go out of tune slightly, and have that behavior we love about analog gear? And so, yes, you have both now. You have the VCOs that already do that thing, but then you have the slop, because people got used to slop, and they liked the idea of turning it up and making a nest, kind of a pitch nest of sounds. So, all right, so when I go to, here's a beautiful sound. You get that nice overblown sound when you press in with your pressure, just modulating, bringing in an LFO. So that's a really beautiful one. Here's one called Electric Mallet now. I'm going to talk about the sequencer a little bit. The Pro 2 sequencer was really powerful and really strong, and it could sequence not only notes but also parameters and automate parameters. So the same thing here, but we've just made it way easier to do and way faster and more real time in every way. So let's see what's in here. All right, so now what you have here is a 16-step sequencer, right? And you have 4 of them, A, B, C, D, these buttons right here. So that means you have 4 sequences per patch. You can use them in various ways. One way you could use them, since you can copy one to the other, you could make a sequence you like on the first 16, and you say, that sounds good. I'm going to copy it to B, and then do something different at the end, and give me like a little turnaround or whatever, and change it in some way. Or in C, it can invent an entirely different one, and think of it at a really different section in this improv you're going to do, and then maybe copy that one to D. So you could play them like a song mode thing, and in real time, that's what I was doing in the first performance, was playing with these different ones. So you have, in the end, 4 16-step sequences, or you could chain them and get a 64-note step sequence, so you can deal with it that way. Let's put in some other notes. So just to show you, it's just, yeah, that's in there, but it's not really thought-provoking. So that sounds all right. So I'll just hit record. Okay. You can add slew so that instead of being just steps of course frequency, you can do that with any parameter, but they kind of slide between each other with a kind of a glide thing. Or you can do swing. There's a swing knob here. Like that. Which I don't think. They can also go backwards. These are your directional buttons over here, or forward and backwards. And they can also go random. Right? Or you can decide to just go into gated mode, and now instead of hitting play, that. And then if you do trigger mode, you can, we're in random, so every time I'm triggering it, it's marching through a step at a time. And you can do that also with your external audio. You could actually, let's say you're playing a drum that you've already done a sound check, and there's a threshold, gated sort of threshold on the audio in. And you can decide what's a good threshold to drive the Pro 3, and you set that threshold. So somebody plays a drum, and it's going to go through those steps at every trigger it gets. That's why it's called trigger mode. So also that allows you to use it with the arpeggiator, so you can have both things happening. That. So then the easy thing to do here is you say, let's just put it in forward mode, and we come up with that riff, so then we can go, oh, still triggering, yeah. Now let's just take some notes out, because to create a rest or rests, just as easy as turning that step on, turning that step off. Ties are similarly easy. You can want the first 4 to be a quarter note, kind of. 3 3, 4, 1. Dun, 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 dun. You can take the whole thing and just go. And now it's like, well, why isn't it lasting that whole time? Well, there's a parameter called duration in the sequencer, and you want to just turn that up. All right, so now you have more of a thing. And now you can create some, now that it's just this one long note, you can actually use the filter. So let's just try to do the same thing with distortion. And every time that you do that, you don't have to say, I'm going to put the distortion on track 6, you know, and please record me or whatever. You just hold down record, and it's going to choose the next time you do it, the next available track. Just automatically, there's 16 tracks to the sequence. So usually the first 3 are for your notes, and the rest are going to be for anything you choose to automate. So yeah, at that point, if you really have a groovy thing that sounds good with the sounds you made with the oscillators, then one thing you can do is mute those tracks. So now there's no sound coming out of it when you play it in here, but you plug in something to the audio in. And then if you're syncing to the beat or something, then you have something that's in BPM sync with that, and it's modulating your guitar, so, or whatever you're putting in the audio in. So yeah, so that's a really effective way to use the sequencer. Pardon? Yeah, I assume so. Let's do that. Let's see if it did it. Hang on. Track. No, the last thing it recorded was the distortion. So no. Yeah.
Can you ratchet on the notes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get to this point. I'm going to go back to turning off that, you know, wake up the rhythm. So we're just going to hit the ratchet tab and turn up the ratcheting. If you get them to go fast enough, you can have 8 per step. So if depending on the tempo, you can actually modulate it to have a pitch and be more than just a stutter. And of course, you can then go in and change the notes you played. You know, you may not want to live with the thing that we thought up at first, so. Or the velocity or the duration of single notes. We might want to tie that to let's run it backwards. Or random. Yeah, so that's an awesome part of every patch. And then, any of these sounds can become paraphonic because there are 3 oscillators. So you get a chance to say, okay, if I just, where are some of the paraphonic patches that I have made? The brass one. You can hear it. I left this in a tuned out state. Should be like, well, not should be, but could be, that it's all the same pitch. If you want to take a simple chord that's in close formation, just a triad, and then take an octave up on one of them and an octave down on the other, then you get almost a more arranged sort of sound that you're doing.
Is there some option to set what a paraphonic split is, whether it's the PCOs or the table PCO?
To decide, like,
Yeah, if you're doing paraphonic split, so is it the first note is the first VCO, the second note is the second VCO, or the TCO, or is that?
right now, it's a round robin starting on 2. Yeah, but I find like when you use the sequencer and you go into this mode and say sequence modes, sequence parameters, paraphonic sequencer, yes or no, then you, if you just play the triad and you think you're hitting it at the same time, you're probably not. It's noticing all your little tiny, yeah, so then at that point, if you want on track 1 to be all what your thumb was playing, or your lowest finger, then a little roll on the data entry gets it to be that way. So now, whatever the lowest note was, it's going to always be on the, when you go to edit it or find it, it's going to be either track 1, 2, or 3. But if you don't do that, then you risk, oh, now I want to edit it, but it's jumping all over the place because I don't know what I hit first. Yeah, so a slight little roll helps you get them in that way a lot better. Yeah, I just found that out at NAMM, actually. So the other thing that's good about paraphonic, okay, is you can make them you can play melodies with them, and you don't have to feel like you have to play chords because it's paraphonic. Because something interesting is happening now. Every 3 notes, it's cycling through slight variations that make it more interesting to listen to, even though you're not using it per se for paraphony. I guess that's how you say it. So, and let me just duck over to the effects. Okay. Let's just go back to basic preset mode. That oscillator 1 giving you that sawtooth. Over here we have some analog distortion, so you can fatten up the waveform and smooth it out a little bit. And over here, we have tuned feedback, which is a effect from Pro 2 and Prophet 12. It takes a while to gather. It's the one parameter that you don't hear the effects immediately, and that's what makes it kind of a guessing game. It has to acquire energy doing its feedback, and that takes literally time to figure. Unruly and hard to control because everything is delayed that happens. So even if you have it automated to do something, it's going to still take time to acquire. So it's very different than everything else on the board. So here, let's go to the thing I was playing when the first of you walked in. For example, this is in paraphonic mode. And one thing, this is a Robert Rich patch, that he uses a lot is our expanded modulation matrix. You know, I think ever since I've been with Dave, the modulation matrix on every piece has gotten deeper and deeper. And now there's like 32 patch chords and an additional 6 fixed mod chords. The others are completely free for sources and destinations. So you can't see it here, but you can see it somewhat. Yeah, and he is totally using not only performance controls, like the slider for the, which really depends on when in this sound you hear it. You use it, rather. But then there's all kinds of LFO work, and 45 sources, 90 destinations, you know, so that really, think of it in modular terms, it's like that kind of flexibility inside the box, but you look at it through this window, you know. And if you're modulating something, then you can affect that patch chord with another patch chord by saying, okay, now the noise should modulate mod 5, one of the patch chords, the amount of mod 5. So that's a lot of what's going on in here. And then there's all these open chords, right? It's not like it's a lot of available empty chords here that aren't being used. So it's really and some of them regard what goes out the 4 CV outs. There's 4 CV outs and ins here to play with modular stuff really well. But so that's in there too, and also MIDI destinations, CC number destinations out your MIDI port. So this little tiny area here is super important for the kind of patches, not only these that evolve, but just any patch that you want to behave with some complexity and some variation over time, so it's not a boring sound to listen to note to note. Yeah, the LFO's tempo sync, the effects tempo sync as well. But we're going to have to find a sequence that's a little more predictable in order to demonstrate that. But so let's find one. Let's just play something I've never heard before. Like this one here. Turn it. slower. So let's go to the stereo, the Bucket Brigade stereo that's here. And turn sync on. Now it's on quarter note, dotted quarter. Now it's on the half note, every 2 beats, dotted half. You can have it all the way up to 32 steps. So it can be really long sync things or these much shorter. This is on a triplet. It's a little bit like the oops, I ate the wrong pill thing. Same thing happens with the LFO. The frequency goes from milliseconds to musically relevant, note references. Oh, there's a really pretty sound I want to play here. This, it's another para sound. It's so cool.
What are the different effects that are in the box?
So if I go through, there are 2 menus because they're dual effects. So if I go through the first one, delay stereo and Bucket Brigade delay, so 2 delays. Chorus, flanger, phaser, high pass filter, ring mod, and rotating speaker. That's what's in effect 1. In effect 2, you have the same menu, and then it adds the super plate, the reverb. Because when it comes to managing the cycles in the machine, et cetera, and having that infinite reverb in there, having 2 iterations or instantiations of it at the same time, just taxes the machine up, and we just thought of general usage, so that's in the second menu. In a way, I wish it was in both menus, but you can only use one, because I'd like to set up all that, massive sound and then high-pass filtered or do something to that, but it's in this other order. But hey, this is software managing the machine, so, we update the firmware, we send it out, so that's the story there. But this sound is basically accordion. Kind of analog warmth accordion. Just a little bit of pressure. What's even that on? The pressure is set at 16 out of 128. There's 4 different curves for aftertouch. There's 4 different curves for velocity as well that you can set. So you have to find how you interact with the keyboard. It's a Fitar, a 3-octave keyboard, so the feel of it is just really nice, really easy to play, fun to play. So let's see here. There's another sound I wanted to play. How are we doing on time here? Oh, it's 8:30, witching hour. Love that sound. Fat, juicy. Any other questions? Yeah. Goes from, I think, 30 to 250. Yeah, so you can really, I don't even know what to do. That's 250. Now that's 30. Of course, once you clock divide, at a half note here, and similarly, if you were to 64th note, the upper, you get there. We add a little slew. You know, there's 2 other features here. I'm just staring at the buttons. If you're going to give a performance, and it's preset based, it has all those presets, and you line yours up, and you know what order you want to go in. You can go very continuously because it has a feature called Q program. And so if you have some sequence that's running there and you're like, I've got to go without stopping into this new section or whatever, then you cue the program, and when it reaches, let's say the end of it's at the beginning of a 64 note or whatever, do it any time in there, and when it gets to the end of that, it switches to the new program and plays the other sequence without stopping. So you have this nice, so you can craft you can have the same sound in a way, and you just want 8 of these sequences, and the next program is going to give you the A, B, C, D as well, so then you just easily go there. And then the other thing is sequence lock. Sequence lock allows you to have, I like what I'm doing, but I wonder if it would be with a different sound, what the effect would be, and you could easily hold that button down and change to another preset and hear what it sounds like on that. And if you like that, you just hit save, and then that sequence is planted there. So it's very easy to do. So I think I have told you everything. Yeah.
So is there a manual button? So if you're experimenting with the manual button, of course you call whatever's on the actual physical knobs?
There's a basic preset that zeroes everything. Yeah. What you see is what you get. No. But there's a really nice revert button, and if you are doing one of these improv things and you kind of get lost, you're like, how do I get back to somewhere else? There's a revert, and the revert either works by holding it and you touch the knob that you're most curious about, and it'll return to the saved state. right? And so you could go knob at a time till it sort of corrals the thing back into the known universe, or it has a revert all thing, which means that without loading it again and stopping in that way, you have reset it to the original thing. So you might have start with normal to crazy, and then go right back to normal, and everyone, that's,
Program is early. ABC wouldn't ship new patches. I know some other synths that have a similar feature with ABC.
Oh, well, let me reduce it. Well, no, let me keep it at 250. We'll see. No. Let's just reload this. And I'll go from the violin solo to the fretless bass. So we'll see. We'll definitely know. Okay, so then Q program. I'll do it at the beginning. It's right on the beat, I think. Yeah. Even though it's a dumb sequence, feel free to write over any of these that you like. You don't really need other people's sequences. Q program, yeah. Sure, yeah. Okay, basic patch. So now we're going to start with the sequential. For some reason. I feel like I'm in a devil's mode here. Hang on one second. You want to kill the so I don't hurt the speakers when I reboot? Yeah. Okay. Devil's mode. It was that last Q program thing. All right. Okay, so no resonance. This is the first of the 4-pole low pass. That's with overdrive, like up half. If I turn that off, and if I turn it all the way up, a little pushier, so I keep it at half. And I'll give it like half resonance. And turn up the resonance. Okay, so that's the first one. Now we're going to go to the ladder filter. Resonance off, drive down. No resonance, no drive. Turn the drive up half. Yeah, I feel like the other one almost sounds like it's another pole. It rounds off more, but this one reveals more. This is really nice. And go all the way up with it. Okay. And then finally, the two-pole, the toms. Get rid of the resonance in low-pass state. It's like, the only one of your friends that's not neurotic, right? It's kind of that thing. And then if we turn the resonance up halfway. Same place in the four-pole ladder, obviously. But when you just shift between them with the same parameters, and then band pass. Well, let's go full resonance. That's the definition of a wah-wah pedal, right? Band pass and high resonance. Drive it a little more. And then go up to notch, turn off band pass. The hardest to hear of all, right? But sometimes the nicest to use because it's really invisible and you're like, there's motion, but you don't know why. And if we go to all the way to the high pass with a full resonance. And no resonance. That's the ladder. Totally different. Yeah, thank you. Last feature, because there's a lot of them. Last feature is the playlist, another performance feature. It's you can save 10 sets, and each set is 4 patches each. So if you want to get to incongruent patches you saved for your gig or whatever, then these 4 buttons are going to allow you to just fetch them fast, right? And you know why, because that song, the set is named after your song, so then you know exactly, you put it on there, and at least 4 you have there. Or what is it? Let me just see here. It's no, it's lists and sets. Yeah, and so you can have 10 sets and 4 lists per set. That's it. So one song could be complex enough to need more than 4 patches. Then you have that in there. But anyway, it's a nice feature because, the Prophet 5, the Prophet 6, the OB, they have the buttons there, right? There's no display or program knobs. So it's nice to just, be able to learn how to get those all fast, right? So playlist, I think, is Dave's idea of doing it that way. So there you have it, laddies and lass. Thank you very much. And when you get a chance, go see the SE in a store or whatever in person, because it's really, really beautiful. It's Andrew McGowan's design, and he really tricked it out. It's just gorgeous. So, hey.